to join us. Jonathan, you're very welcome. Jonathan is the CEO City Farms Limited and Rooftop Farm Limited, co-founder Robotic Farm Systems. Jonathan is also the co-founder of Robotic Farm System, and he's a multi-award winning entrepreneur and international speaker. Jonathan created Cloud Grow as a game-changing approach to the supply of many horticultural crops, eliminating waste and maximizing efficiency in the supply chain. This disruptive technology produces crops hyper-locally in the urban environment at the point of need, avoiding all costs of distribution with crops harvested on demand, producing the greenest and freshest crops. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining us to throw some insight to this amazing technology, how it works, and how people can actually use that. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. So I'm Jonathan, founder of City Farm Systems, and our work is all about reducing the amount of resources needed to feed city populations. Along the way, I've contributed to academic books, the first about using AI in indoor agriculture, where for too long the use of data has lagged behind arable farming. The second was a chapter titled Feeding a Smart City for Springer's Handbook, where I explored a wider range of food and how growing without soil has taught me about the long-term soil health that too many ignore. Sorry, that hasn't forwarded. My apologies. I need to go there. That's better. So here we can see many of the issues that need to be addressed. Food shortages, the food not getting to the right people, and various people trying to help. Oh, this is going all over the place. My apologies. Right, no, there we are. So at City Farm Systems, we chose to look at the end goal, the need to feed a city. And this is another look at how complicated it is. This doesn't show the incredible amount of food processing food undergoes, much of which reduces nutritional values or needs potentially harmful additives to extend shelf life. But so farming-like industry has adopted data and IT, but there's very little, if any, automated interaction between the distant ends of supply chains. Each forklift here can be thought of as a break in data and a point of profit taking. This means the UK sees frozen lamb arriving from New Zealand just as fresh as Welsh lambs head to slaughter, or apples and pears arriving from South Africa, Spain, Belgium, or Portugal just as British orchards start harvesting. The result is lower market prices and loss-making farmers. The economics are insane, with supermarkets in Ecuador charging more for locally grown bananas than we pay in the UK. So that might work for cash, but makes no sense when looking at carbon and sustainability. Another issue here is that we see crops harvested to survive the supply chain rather than eating or nutritional qualities. So whilst some think circularity can be achieved by donating use by date foods to charities, food will never be circular in the sense of cradle to cradle or seed to seed once eaten. We could also say we are flushing soil health down the toilet. Since the plant needs circularity, I think we need to start with circularity of data and of nutrients. So London only holds enough food for a day and a half and needs 17,500 tonnes to arrive every day, even though we know 6,400 of those will be wasted. So with the UK importing 84% of our fruit and half of our vegetables, that means an incredible amount of food miles. And most teenagers are taught the final mile is the most expensive. So we ask, how can a city be smart if it doesn't help feed itself? In the UK and many other countries, agritech R&D funding is heavily focused on simply pushing more food out of the farm gate, or these days the lab. Yet, as we have seen, vast amounts of cash and carbon are spent in complex supply chains, and that 40% of what arrives in cities needn't have been grown. If you add to that the crops that don't make it to harvest in a saleable condition, we see a huge amount of a farmer's cost and effort are completely wasted. And here's another part of the problem. A truck can carry 26 tons of grain or potatoes with a small amount of packaging. Once converted to crisps, that same truck can only deliver 1.3 tons. So together with vast amounts of packaging, of expensive single-use packaging, and needing 20 times as many trucks. And if you look at wine, most UK supermarket wine labels show that, regardless of where it was made, it was bottled in Manchester after arriving in bulk containers. So whilst this reduces the volume by a factor of 6, by avoiding the need to transport glass, cardboard, and fresh air. These points all factor in our thinking. And I remember last year hearing a Swedish vertical farm pitching for funds to build an 18,000 square metre facility where they intended to grow and pack 3 salad leaf varieties. And all I could think of was that they wanted to recreate the carbon-intensive crisp supply chain and swap the crisp for perishable leaves. So taking that a stage further, we can see energy-intensive supply chains are the cause of much of a destination building's Scope 3 emissions that make their efforts to reduce Scope 1 and 2 pale into insignificance. So we must reduce energy consumption, and here is a frightening list of waste. Very few realise all intensive indoor growers pay to add carbon dioxide their crops need, while their customers pay to dump near-perfect conditions for a greenhouse. There are some excellent practices where growers co-locate with sources of heat and carbon dioxide, but they still depend on the traditional business model and costly distribution. There are many headline-grabbing stories about vertical farms, but only a few admit the harsh reality about losing vast amounts of investor cash. So rather than devote an entire building to grow a narrow range of produce in bulk, we spent time creating our USPs. The ability to reduce costs by growing to order at the point of need. So we think there needs to be a new business model, and that is what we offer. A vertical farm can only reduce the lowest cost food miles by choosing to pay city overheads, to shut out free sunlight, to pay to recreate it, and then still incur final mile costs. In contrast, we can install that same capacity across several end-user rooftops and avoid the need for trucks and trans-only packaging. Back in 2020, the Financial Times published a report suggesting there was only one profitable vertical farm globally. And to put that into perspective, most UK vertical farms can measure their losses in tens of thousands of pounds each week. So we started by asking, why set out to grow, pack, and deliver produce we know the data can show will be wasted? Our approach means we can track the data from seed to sale and use it to unlock the many benefits that can only be found when growing to order at point of need. So this slide shows how collaboration offers huge advantages, with a rooftop greenhouse making the building more efficient and offering a carbon-consuming supply chain. It was a past director at Tesco who spoke about getting a pot of living plants to the shelves being 65% of their total cost. And much of that is the need to buy, transport, and dispose of transit-only packaging most don't even recognise as a cost of distribution. So our ability to grow to order at the point of need means we can entirely avoid packaging that is of no interest to the consumer. And in India, they are using rooftop greenhouses to reduce the costs of fresh air for office buildings. And we can add the ability to turn them into food production facilities. So in other words, we consume Scope 1 emissions to avoid all related Scope 3 emissions. And that's a better than net zero solution. Now, chemistry is a particular interest of ours. The periodic table includes elements that are essential in biology. It also suggests the danger of separating farming practices. So we need to remember that elements are rarely isolated, with chemistry controlling compounds and reactions. So those who talk of growing without soil as hydroponics amuse me, as all plants with roots grow hydroponically. It is the very chemistry of dissolved chemical salts in water And those who grow without soil need to control them more precisely. And this is why liquid nutrients are separated into two key concentrates to avoid or slow unwanted reactions. But the interesting point here is, for a healthy human diet, we need to understand that plants grown in soils take up trace elements coincidentally, which can be adding texture and flavour. But farmers who rely on synthetic fertilizers invariably ignore this. So while we are encouraged to turn to plant-based diets, the worse our diets must become. And researching this, I found no mention of lithium, and yet it's a drug of choice to control bipolar disorders. So if we look at some of those 10 elements a bit further, we can see a lack of them leads on to many modern-day ills, some of which climate activists claim are reasons we should turn to a plant-based diet. And so we like to look at how we can achieve those within our systems. And because we can trace with RFID and move mobile crop trays past monitoring stations, rather than homogenize a whole facility, we can add individual nutrient mixes to every crop tray that comes past and give a far better outcome. And this really needs to be taken a whole stage further. I won't go through all of those because there's a lot there, but it is a lot of the modern day ills. So our key drivers are all relevant to cities around the world, including those in low and middle income countries. And our use of data can unlock additional benefits, such as giving a carbon consuming supply chain with a better than net zero solution. Our distributed growing reduces the need for energy and replicating free sunlight. We can make a healthy food affordable and hand shelf life to the consumer. So moving farmers along the value chain can attract a wide range of much needed new farmers. And then we can add the ability, and this is a fascinating aspect, of growing an education with STEM. So I hope that's been of very great interest. And for those who really are interested, please do get in touch and we can take it a stage further and explain exactly how we do achieve it. So thank you. And if I can hand back.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. A very fascinating presentation, cutting across nutrition, recycling, heat waste, and also reducing carbon footprint of the food we eat and consume. So, thank you for that insight, Jonathan. I think our panelists can now come back.